Humanity had once been a formidable power in the galaxy, feared and respected in equal measure. For centuries, they had fought countless battles across the stars, their fleets known for their unmatched strategy, resilience, and sheer firepower. They were a warrior species, forged in the crucible of conflict, always prepared to defend their territory and allies. But the endless wars took their toll. After centuries of relentless warfare, humanity began to withdraw. Slowly, their fleets disappeared from the galactic frontiers, their colonies went silent, and their once feared presence faded into the shadows. Without explanation, they vanished from the political landscape, leaving behind only rumors and whispers. Over time, the galaxy moved on. Other species filled the vacuum left by humanity's retreat. The once mighty human warships were soon considered relics of a bygone era, their advanced technologies now deemed primitive, in a rapidly evolving galaxy. The stories of their victories became legends, bedtime tales to scare young children, and warnings of what unchecked aggression could lead to. With the passing years, even those tales faded, and humanity itself was relegated to the forgotten corners of galactic memory, an oddity, an ancient race that had lost its place in the stars. In humanity's absence, a new force emerged to claim dominance. The Zenith Alliance, a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful species, rose to prominence. United by their ambition and driven by a shared desire for control, they positioned themselves as the new guardians of order and progress. They prided themselves on their technological superiority, boasting fleets that were unmatched in size and firepower. They viewed the galaxy as their rightful domain, a territory they had tamed and shaped with their collective might. To them, humanity was an irrelevant relic, a species that had once dared to challenge the cosmos, only to be undone by their own hubris. The Zenith Alliance regarded human technology as crude and outdated, a collection of artifacts better suited for museums than battlefields. Their historians and scholars dismissed humanity's past achievements as exaggerated myths, tales spun by a desperate race that had fought too hard and lost too much. The Alliance saw themselves as the epitome of progress, standing tall on the foundations that others, like humanity, had left behind. They laughed at the thought that any trace of humanity could still pose a threat to their supremacy. But fate has a way of intervening. In a remote and uncharted sector of the galaxy, a Zenith scouting vessel stumbled upon a sight that would change everything. Drifting in the outskirts of a forgotten star system, they found an ancient human warship, the Indomitable. At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than a derelict, its hull scarred, its once mighty engines cold and silent. A relic of humanity's past, a ghost ship left adrift in the void. The crew of the scouting vessel laughed at their discovery, mocking the ship's antiquated design, its rough edges, and its battle-worn exterior. To them, it was an amusing find, a testament to the folly of a forgotten race. They transmitted the news back to their superiors, who saw an opportunity. The Zenith Alliance decided to capture the Indomitable and bring it back as a trophy, a symbol of their dominance over all who had come before. They would display it in their capital, a prize that would further cement their reputation as the ultimate power in the galaxy. The order was given, and the best fleet in the Alliance was dispatched to retrieve the relic. But they had underestimated what they were dealing with. To the Zenith Alliance, the Indomitable was a dormant artifact, an ancient vessel to be dissected and studied, a piece of history that no longer had any relevance. They did not know that within its battered hull lay something far more potent than they could ever imagine. The Indomitable was no mere relic. It was a sleeping giant, a warship with secrets and capabilities that had been forgotten by all but a few. As the fleet set out, confident in their mission, the Indomitable floated in silence, its systems dormant, its AI core waiting, watching. The Zenith Alliance, with all their arrogance and disdain, was about to learn that some things should never be forgotten, that some relics still carried the weight of a legend, and that humanity's story was far from over. The Zenith fleet cut through the darkness of space, moving with the precision and confidence of a force that had never been challenged. Within the command center of the flagship, the atmosphere was light, almost jovial. The commanders exchanged smug grins and half-hearted jokes, their voices tinged with mockery. They saw this mission as little more than a formality, a simple retrieval of a human relic that posed no real threat. To them, the Indomitable was an amusing find, an outdated vessel that would soon become a mere exhibit, displayed to remind the galaxy of the Zenith Alliance's superiority. They scoffed at the idea that anything of value could be gleaned from a ship built by a species they considered long extinct or irrelevant. They laughed as they imagined parading the old warship through their capital, a trophy to symbolize the Zenith Alliance's ascension over all that had come before. "Imagine the look on their faces," one commander sneered, "when they see we've brought back a piece of galactic history." Another chimed in, "A history best forgotten. What can an old tin can teach us that we don't already know?" As they neared the Indomitable, the fleet's scanners began to sweep over the warship, analyzing its structure, composition, and systems. The readings were strange, inconsistent with what they expected. The hull was composed of materials they didn't fully understand, and there were traces of unusual energy signatures that seemed to shift and flicker. The sensors picked up a faint, almost imperceptible hum, as if some dormant power still flowed through the ship's veins. The officers dismissed these anomalies with a wave of the hand. "Old tech," they muttered, convinced that any discrepancies were simply the result of decaying systems and obsolete machinery. The boarding teams prepared for what they believed would be an uneventful operation. They ran through their checklists with the casual demeanor of soldiers assigned to a routine mission. Their leaders assured them there was nothing to fear, the ship was dead, its defenses long since disabled. They would board, dismantle whatever remained, and haul the husk back to their homeworld as planned. Yet, even among their confident ranks, a few voices of doubt began to emerge. Some crew members, those with sharper instincts or perhaps a bit more caution, noticed strange readings on their consoles. They saw patterns in the energy spikes, irregular but too frequent to be random, as if something was stirring deep within the ship. They raised their concerns to their superiors, pointing out the fluctuations, the odd shifts in the energy field around the Indomitable. But their warnings were met with irritation and disdain. "Paranoia," the commanders said dismissively. "You've been in space too long. It's just a broken old ship. The readings are nothing but noise from outdated systems trying to stay alive." The doubts were silenced, the concerns brushed aside. Orders were given to proceed with the operation as planned. The fleet inched closer, unaware of the dormant force they were provoking. The fleet began to encircle the Indomitable, moving into formation to establish control over the area. Their ships drifted closer, their engines humming with power, their weapons systems scanning for any hint of resistance. Still, the Indomitable remained silent, a dark silhouette against the backdrop of stars. No lights, no movement, just the eerie stillness of a ship lost to time. The commanders grew bolder, ordering their ships to close the distance, confident that there was nothing to fear. They underestimated the vessel before them, believing it to be nothing more than a powerless relic. As the lead ships moved into position, a faint flicker ran along the length of the Indomitable. It was barely noticeable at first, like the faintest spark in a void. But then, another flicker, brighter this time, and then another, cascading across its surface like a wave of light. The energy readings on the Zenith scanners spiked suddenly, alarms sounding through the control rooms. The crew looked up in confusion, then in growing alarm. The commanders barked orders, demanding explanations, but none came. The flickers turned into pulses, the pulses into steady streams of light. And then, without warning, the Indomitable came to life. Its engines roared awake, its shields flickered into existence, and its weapon systems powered up with a deep, resonant hum. The dormant warship, long thought to be dead, was awakening. The crew of the Zenith fleet stared in disbelief as the ship's systems activated one by one, revealing their true, terrible power. The ancient human warship was no relic, it was a slumbering beast, and now it had been roused from its centuries-long sleep. The Indomitable roared to life, its once dark hull now alight with a brilliant cascade of flickering lights. The sudden activation sent a shiver through the void, its presence unmistakably alive, and terrifyingly aware. Energy shields shimmered into existence around the ship, glowing with an intense, impenetrable radiance. Deep within, the AI core, dormant for centuries, began to hum with power. It processed the situation in microseconds, analyzing threats, calculating responses, and formulating strategies with the precision of a cold, unfeeling machine. The ancient warship, long presumed dead, was not only awake, it was ready to engage. Without hesitation, the Indomitable unleashed its first strike. The air around it seemed to ripple as massive energy cannons fired, beams of searing light cutting through the dark like a knife through fabric. The closest Zenith ships didn't even have time to react. Their shields shattered under the force, hulls crumpling like paper. Explosions lit up the void as two ships were instantly disabled, their engines bursting into flames. The Alliance fleet, still reeling from the shock of the activation, scrambled in a chaotic attempt to assess the threat, their confidence shattered in an instant. Panic spread quickly through the Alliance ranks. The fleet, once moving with arrogant precision, was now a flurry of disordered commands and frantic maneuvers. The Indomitable showed no mercy. It executed a series of sharp, calculated turns, moving with a grace and speed that seemed impossible for a ship of its size. Its weapon systems fired again and again, each blast targeted with deadly accuracy. Torpedoes launched from hidden bays streaked toward their marks, guided by advanced targeting systems that seemed to predict the enemy's moves before they even made them. The Alliance commanders struggled to regroup, shouting orders that overlapped in confusion. Their ships, built for intimidation and brute force, found themselves hopelessly outmatched by a vessel that seemed to dance through the stars with lethal precision. The Indomitable weaved through the enemy fleet, its hull gleaming as it evaded counterattacks with ease. What the Alliance had dismissed as a relic was proving to be a masterpiece of warfare, a ship designed not just to survive but to dominate. Weapon systems unlike anything the Alliance had seen were now unleashed in rapid succession. A pulse cannon fired, sending a shockwave that disrupted the electronics of nearby ships, rendering their controls useless. A plasma railgun followed, launching projectiles that tore through armor as if it were nothing. Drones, compact but heavily armed, swarmed from the ship's bays, darting between enemy vessels, exploiting every gap and weakness. Every move was a lesson in strategy, every strike a demonstration of humanity's forgotten genius. The Alliance fleet, so confident moments before, was now in complete disarray. Ships collided as they attempted to evade the relentless assault, their crews caught in the chaos of a battle they had never expected. They fired back, but their shots were wild and desperate, few finding their target. The Indomitable responded with cold efficiency, predicting their patterns, countering every move before it could be fully executed. It was as if the warship was toying with them, demonstrating its superiority in every maneuver. The realization dawned slowly but heavily upon the Alliance commanders. They were facing an opponent they did not understand, with technology that defied their knowledge. The arrogance they had carried into the battle evaporated, replaced by a dawning terror. The stories of humanity's prowess, the whispered legends of their tactical brilliance and resilience, were not myths after all. They were real, and they were facing that reality now. Frantic orders crackled through the comms. "Regroup! Regroup!" they shouted, but there was no cohesion, no unity. Ships turned in all directions, some trying to flee, others attempting to form a defensive perimeter. It was too late. The Indomitable was relentless, its attacks continuing without pause, its AI calculating the next optimal strike, cutting through the confusion with surgical precision. The warship's power was far beyond anything the Alliance had anticipated, and they had walked right into its jaws. The Alliance commanders, their pride now a distant memory, struggled to find a way out. They had come to capture a relic, a trophy of a forgotten era, and instead, they had awoken a giant. The fleet was being dismantled, their best ships rendered useless by the cold efficiency of the Indomitable's weapons. What had begun as a mission of mockery had become a desperate fight for survival. Then, just as the Alliance fleet teetered on the brink of complete collapse, a signal cut across all frequencies, broadcasting in a calm, steady voice. "Humanity is not forgotten. You have trespassed." The message echoed through the empty void, carrying with it a weight that left no room for doubt. The Indomitable was far more than a relic. It was a warning, and it had only just begun to fight. the Indomitable unleashed a barrage of firepower, its weaponry illuminating the void in rapid, blinding bursts. It moved like a predator, circling the Alliance fleet with a terrifying, almost sentient precision. Its AI-controlled systems ran countless calculations per second, predicting enemy maneuvers, intercepting trajectories, and adjusting its strategy in real time. Every shot was deliberate, every attack meticulously planned. The ship fought as if it were alive, its movements fluid and adaptive, never hesitating, never slowing. The Alliance fleet, once a symbol of strength and superiority, found itself in a desperate struggle for survival. The commanders, who had laughed at the human relic, now barked frantic orders, their voices betraying their fear. Some ships tried to break away, attempting to flee back to safer space, but the Indomitable anticipated their paths, cutting them off with devastating salvos that tore through shields and hulls alike. Others attempted to form defensive formations, hoping to regroup and mount a counteroffensive, but the warship's AI adapted to each move, disrupting their plans with surgical precision. The panic grew. The Alliance had never faced a foe like this, an enemy that seemed to know their every thought, their every tactic, before they even executed them. The Indomitable used unconventional strategies that left the fleet reeling. It deployed electronic warfare, jamming communications and scrambling targeting systems, rendering the Alliance's most advanced ships blind and defenseless. Drones swarmed like a hive, diving into weak points, detonating with pinpoint accuracy. Plasma bursts and ion cannons hammered the ship's exposed flanks, forcing them into tighter and tighter formations, vulnerable and trapped. Fear spread through the ranks of the Alliance. The commanders, previously so arrogant, now scrambled to find a way to survive. Some tried to open channels to negotiate, to plead for mercy, but their messages were met with cold silence. The Indomitable was not interested in parley. It had no need for diplomacy. It had been built for war, and it would not stop until the threat was eradicated. As the battle raged on, the voice of the AI began to resonate across the communication channels, clear and steady, a calm amidst the chaos. It spoke of humanity's legacy, their long history of struggle and conflict, their sacrifices in battles fought across the stars, their refusal to yield even when the odds were insurmountable. The AI recited accounts of ancient wars, of fleets lost and worlds defended, of a species that had never given up, that had always found a way to survive, to adapt, to fight back. It was a voice from the past, reminding the galaxy that humanity had never been defeated, only forgotten. The Alliance felt the weight of that legacy. Their fleet, once mighty, was being dismantled piece by piece, not just by advanced technology, but by an unyielding spirit that they had underestimated. The commanders, realizing the scale of their mistake, tried one last desperate maneuver. Their flagship, the most powerful vessel in the fleet, charged forward, engines blazing, weapons systems locked on the Indomitable. It was a final gambit, a bold attempt to turn the tide of battle in their favor. But the Indomitable had anticipated this. With a swift maneuver, it flanked the flagship, moving into a position that left the enemy's ship exposed. Its weapons fired in unison, targeting critical points with precision. In seconds, the flagship's shields buckled under the pressure, its hull breached by a series of concentrated blasts. The mighty vessel shuddered, its engines faltered, and then it was gone, a massive explosion tearing it apart from within. The Alliance fleet watched in stunned silence as their best ship was reduced to debris, their last hope extinguished. The destruction of their flagship broke their resolve. The remaining ships, realizing the futility of resistance, turned to retreat. They fled in disarray, their formations shattered, their confidence obliterated. What had begun as a mission of conquest had turned into a frantic escape from a relentless enemy that showed no sign of stopping. The Indomitable did not pursue. It held its position, its weapons still aimed, its shields still glowing, as the remnants of the Alliance fleet limped away, carrying with them the story of their defeat. The AI's voice returned, broadcasting across all channels, its message clear and final. Humanity has returned. We will not be forgotten. Trespass again, and face the consequences. The warning echoed through the stars, a declaration to the galaxy that the warrior species was back, and it would not be ignored. The survivors of the Alliance fleet, battered and broken, made their way back to their homeworlds, their ships limping through the stars. The stories they carried spread like wildfire, tales of a forgotten human warship that had awakened with a vengeance, of a battle that had turned their mightiest fleet into wreckage. The news reverberated across the galaxy, shaking the foundations of established power. The galaxy, so sure of humanity's obsolescence, was now gripped by shock and uncertainty, struggling to comprehend how a mere relic could wield such devastating power. Within days, the rumors reached every corner of known space. Governments, factions, and independent colonies whispered of the indomitable and its unimaginable strength. Humanity, once dismissed as a lost cause, a species whose time had passed, was now seen in a starkly different light. The old stories of human tenacity, their fierce independence, and their unparalleled adaptability resurfaced. Suddenly, the idea of humanity as a force to be reckoned with didn't seem so absurd. For many, the battle marked a turning point in how they perceived the humans. Some saw them as potential allies, a powerful force that could help tip the scales in the balance of power. They remembered the legends of human loyalty to their allies, their fierce determination to protect those who stood with them. Diplomatic envoys were sent in secret, messages coded and encrypted, seeking contact, hoping to establish ties with a species that could stand against the Zenith Alliance's growing influence. Others, however, saw a renewed threat. To them, the awakening of the indomitable was a sign of danger, a warning that the old warrior race was stirring once more. They feared a resurgence of human aggression, a return to the days when humanity had roamed the stars as conquerors, never backing down from a fight. These factions began to plot in the shadows, preparing contingencies, whispering of preemptive strikes to contain this unexpected revival before it could gather momentum. And then, more signals began to appear, spreading across the galaxy like distant echoes returning to life. Human outposts, thought abandoned or destroyed, began to transmit once more. Stations that had been silent for centuries now sent cryptic messages, their codes unmistakably human. Long-dormant colonies blinked back to existence on the star maps, announcing their presence with a quiet, confident assurance. It was as if humanity had been waiting, watching from the shadows, biding their time for this very moment. A new chapter was unfolding, and the galaxy could only watch in anticipation. The humans were emerging from their long hibernation, revealing themselves piece by piece. They were no longer hiding, no longer content to be forgotten. Their ships, their outposts, their people, all were resurfacing, and with them came a sense of inevitability that the galaxy would have to reckon with. Some factions moved quickly to reach out, eager to forge new alliances with the returning humans, to build bridges before the Zenith Alliance could react. They saw an opportunity to shift the balance of power, to ally with a species that had proven, beyond doubt, that it could not be underestimated. Others, however, began to prepare for conflict, fearing that humanity's return would upset the fragile peace they had known. Spies were dispatched, defenses strengthened, and war councils convened in secrecy. In the midst of it all, the indomitable remained silent, hovering in space like a sentinel. The AI on board observed the unfolding chaos, processing the myriad signals, weighing the intentions of those who sought contact and those who plotted in the dark. It understood that the galaxy was at a crossroads, teetering between alliance and conflict, and it knew that humanity's next moves would be critical. With calculated precision, the AI transmitted one final message, broadcasting across every channel, every frequency, ensuring it would be heard by all who listened. "We are humanity. We remember. And now so will you." The words echoed through the cosmos, a declaration not just of presence but of purpose, a reminder that they were no longer a forgotten relic but a force with a legacy that would not be denied. The galaxy, once so confident in its dismissal of the human race, now found itself on uncertain ground. The laughter that had greeted their so-called relics was gone, replaced by a quiet, pervasive fear. Humanity had returned, and their presence would not be ignored. The galaxy laughed at the human relics, but now, it trembles before them.